Former President Donald Trump is in a Florida courtroom right now, waiting to hear more about when his classified documents trial will begin. And in about an hour, a judge in the Georgia case will hear final arguments in the misconduct hearing of District Attorney Fani Willis and her, as I call him, prosecutorial paramour, Nathan Wade. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner on this fine Friday, along with my co-host Kayleigh McEnany and Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Director of the Tech Policy Center at the Heritage Foundation, Kara Frederick, and host of Making Money on Fox Business, Charles Payne. He's making money as he sits here. The number of legal challenges against Trump raising some questions now about whether they are political stunts to keep him from a second term or anything else. Trump is in the Florida courtroom that I mentioned right now, learning about when his classified documents trial will begin, and the timing, as you know, would be key. The judge could push the trial until after the November presidential election, and that could ignite outrage from the left, as did the decision for the U.S. Supreme Court to take up Trump's immunity case. That just happened. And today, we'll hear the final arguments in a hearing that will determine whether District Attorney Fani Willis should be disqualified from handling the election interference case against Trump because of her romantic relationship with the prosecutor she hired, Nathan Wade. I wasn't kidding. He was married. Prosecutorial paramour. Charles Payne, your top line thoughts.
Listen, there's so many indictments. I'm not a lawyer, but you look at New York, for instance, right? Now with the penalties and everything, $400 million to be paid on a victimless crime where there was no victim. No one showed up at a local police precinct to file a report. In fact, the banks that did business with President Trump wanted to do more business with President Trump. And you start to think about it, particularly as a business person. I know as I was growing my business, I would every now and then embellish. Okay, it's like we're a tiny firm, and but we can do this and we can do that. We would embellish.
You're tiny but mighty.
No, but the point is, like, they're saying that President Trump lied. There's one person's lies, another person's embellishment, and particularly when it's something as, like a real estate, which often is, in the eye of the beholder, so to speak. That right there, for instance, that is just, to me, it's pretty clear. It's pretty obvious, right? What's happening with this Fani Willis thing is amazing drama. I don't know if she's hired an agent yet, but she needs to. She needs to get on Bravo. I'm seeing Judge Fani. I'm seeing Judge Fani up there, like, keeping it real, keeping it real.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go for at least 2 seasons, okay? But the bottom line is that the whole thing feels like a farce. It feels like a political farce, and the thing is, it's backfiring.
All right. Now, if you need an attorney on any of that, we've got Emily, and I almost want to hire her just for you.
I know, right? I love it.
So talk to me, Emily, the difference that Charles first pointed out with where Trump is on the case where he's accused of embellishing and lying about and inflating the value of things.
Right, and the sort of defense to that, the argument is that that's sort of standard course. And you know this better than I, but when you are obtaining loans from banks, it's sort of in everyone's best interest to a degree if you inflate the value because that stimulates commerce. And here the argument was that not only was commerce stimulated, but so too values were ultimately, a lot of paychecks were paid, a lot of overhead was made. Sure. And that conversation is between the banks, the lender, and the recipient. Let me know if I'm off here. And so for the court to sort of jump in, for the DOJ or the Attorney General to jump in was a massive out of nowhere overstep and unwelcome.
One of our favorite Christmas movies, It's a Wonderful Life, right? And the bank at the end of the day comes through, right? I mean, and this is not a small town bank, doing something. This is a Deutsche Bank, one of the top 20 banks in the entire world. Our Federal Reserve keeps Deutsche Bank alive. If Deutsche Bank ran into trouble today, our Federal Reserve would bail them out. That's how critical, important, and large they are. They're not dumb. They do business to make money, and they made money with President Trump. A 70-year-old law without ever being applied once, all of a sudden it's applied. It's pretty transparent what this is.
So does that speak, Cara, to the issue that the American public, those who were with Trump to begin with, are with him now even more so with donations and so on and so forth? Popularity.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at his momentum has just really been enhanced by a lot of the weaponization because the American people aren't dumb. We can see this for what it is. I think there's a very critical data point that I haven't heard mentioned too often, and there's a slew of polls starting right before February. NBC News News had a poll in February, AP before that. And what they basically said is you see polls where Trump is ahead of Biden in the general election. But if Trump is convicted this year, then with registered voters, Biden then pulls ahead of Trump. So that, I think, lends a lot of fuel to their fire, this weaponization fire that is under these prosecutors. And it's a reason why these cases are so aggressive and so aberrant, you know, as in keeping with what Charles said and what Emily says. You know, this doesn't happen normally. It is abnormal because there is a political endgame here.
Kaylee, with you, I want to focus in on the Georgia case. And one of the things that you're pointing to, Kara, is the fact that there are 19 co-defendants in that. Now, there are a few that have moved on with their cases, and they're not part of the pool that are still fighting and have hired defense attorneys. But, I mean, that's how we got this case. One of those defense attorneys for a co-defendant decided to go after the facts that were Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were together when the case was going on. And when they got together really matters.
Absolutely. Ashley Merchant did great work for her client finding this. We'll see what happens to Fani Willis. But in the interest of highlighting something I have not before, this Friday I decided to dedicate my time not to analyzing any which case, but I wanted to reserve my time to the unhinged left and the media as they attack our institutions. Take a watch.
I mean, to me, it's disappointing. It's troubling. They've thrown a monkey wrench into the schedule.
They take so long in making that decision that they are giving de facto immunity.
It is frustrating to me that the idea that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to be delaying this trial for a couple of months.
The cravenness of the court is evident in what they are doing with the pacing here, right? Like putting this off for 7 weeks, sitting on it for 2 weeks for no reason, obviously pushing all of the cases that they can pushing them to the point where Trump will be standing for election before any of us have heard the verdicts in any of those cases. Got it. It's the timing.
Obviously, we can't put all of our hopes in the Supreme Court. The people need to be engaged and aroused at this point.
So being engaged and aroused against the Supreme Court, attacking our institutions.
You know, I don't like the use of those words. They're confusing to me.
I don't either, but imagine if someone on the right did this against the Supreme Court. You are only allowed to attack America's greatest institutions if you are on the left.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for voters? Because that's really what I drill it all down to. I mean, are voters literally having their rights taken right off their plates in order to go into that booth and know that they got all of the right information to make a decision on who should be president, and we're not manipulated through the legal system to have feelings for or against one or the other?
Yeah, I believe in upholding the rule of law. Of course, everyone does. But when you start looking at cases where the Associated Press can't find a case similar to the civil fraud case that was victimless,
in 70 years.
When the New York Times can't find a case where New York law has been used to prosecute in a federal election,
ever.
When these are unprecedented cases, you've got to ask yourself why, and it starts to feel like political retribution.
Well, what you showed that's playing out, I mean, I don't see how people don't see that.
Right.
But they'd have to be watching everything in order to compare.
Absolutely.
So,
And can I submit another comparator? Because those were so apt. It's sort of, you know, the lack of precedence. And then we also were served up on a silver platter by the Her report in a classified document situation. In fact, I argue much more egregious than what President Trump is facing. Well, it's an elderly gentleman that would, you know, go well with the jury, so we're not going to bring any charges. And then look what we're hearing today. Look what we were discussing. The trial coming up for former President Trump about classified documents. That's what Americans see. The blatant injustice is a travesty. Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.